Hey, what's up, nerds? It's Paul here at Radio Free Hammer Hall. Today, just kind of gonna talk about what's going on with Nurgle in general right now and where I'm kind of at in how I'm thinking about that army as well as the other armies I have and the game in general. Um, I played a one-day tournament today, and never before have I felt the weight of how old the Nurgle book is. Like, my first round was against Ironjaws, and it felt like we were playing two different games. It just, like, I have never seen before, like, that big of a gulf between like what abilities he was able to do versus what things I was able to do. The power of his units and his abilities versus what I was bringing to the table. Like, I got trapped in my deployment zone top of turn one and just got beaten down by like not even his whole army. So it was like really discouraging, and it was also like it was a relatively new player as well, and I'm a very experienced player, so like to hear someone say like, oh, I've only played like X games of Age of Sigmar at 2,000 points, and then they proceed to just like raffle stomp you with an army that is like, I don't know Iron Jaws that well, so I can't say like whether or not it was that good of a list, but the I know the army is relatively new player friendly, and it is very aggressive. So it's just kind of like you just run forward and punch things. So between all of the like the nature of the army, the um the newness of the book compared to mine, and then just him getting lots of really good dice rolls, like his dice were hot the whole game. Um it wasn't even fun. Um and it really highlighted to me like even when like my units were performing pretty optimally, right? Like I was like, because I was kind of trapped in my deployment zone, like all of my buffs were radiating out to all of my units. Like I had the Glotkin and Sloppy Bile Piper buffing up Puscoil Blightlord, so they were throwing like a million attacks, and it was still not enough. And despite having like a 4-up save and a 5-up ward, the Puscoils went down like nothing, and then all of my Blight Kings went down like nothing, and then like just everything, despite being like supposedly one of the toughest armies in the game, it really just didn't take much for this Ironjaw's army to really just like completely knock me out. And so like I'm really frustrated with where Nurgle is right now. I think Sloppity Bile Piper is really powerful, but the units that you use him on, I think, are just not great. Like, most people are buffing Plague Bearers with him, and I don't know that that's, like, a bad choice, necessarily, but it's hard to make Plague Bearers, like, really push up the board. And there's... I don't know, like, there's not a lot of other demons that I'm seeing that are really powerful. Like, I was thinking Puscoil Blightlords seem like they're a pretty good hammer unit when you can stack a bunch of buffs on them, and, you know, they're decently mobile. They get a lot of, attack buffs and defensive buffs. They seem like they're good, and they're only 20 points more than Blight Kings, and they're probably punching harder than Blight Kings are. So like, and then certainly to like concentrate your firepower, a unit of 4 Puscoils is definitely going to punch harder than a unit of 10 Blight Kings, just because you can't get all 10 Blight Kings into combat because of coherency. Um, so I was kind of, that's the kind of thinking that I had. And I've experimented with a lot of different lists. I've experimented going heavy on demons. I've experimented going heavy on Blight Kings. I've done, this mix of Puscoils and Plague Bearers, Puscoils and Blight Kings. And, I've recently been using the Glotkin a lot. It's good to have like a monster that can punch. And like he's probably the most punchy monster that Nurgle really has to offer. And he also gives out good buffs, and he has the good debuff to hit aura. So like those things seemed like they were like the right pieces to put together for me, and it felt like the army was relatively good on battle tactics. Like, it's the thing I think with battle tactics that you really need to think about is like being able to push your opponent off of an objective. And if I concentrate all of my firepower and all of my buffs into one unit of Puscoils, they're really powerful and they can knock a unit off an objective. And, they could also go and take down a monster or, a variety of other things that are, I think, essential to really be able to achieve your battle tactics. And I've just been feeling like they like it's just not doing the job. So recently I've been playing a Path to Glory League, and I've been playing with my Slaves to Darkness. However, I will say I've also been really struggling with Slaves to Darkness as well. But I think part of that is that I don't have any Varangard, I don't have Archaeon, I don't have Be'lakor, I don't even have any Manticores. So I'm really, like, I'm missing, like, the big, strong pieces of that army that make it go. Happened to get a couple of Varangard horses from a friend of mine today that had converted his Varangard. He did like all unique mounts for his Varangard. And so he had like the riders, but had extra horses. So I got 2 Varangard horses. I just bought a third one off of eBay. So I'll have a unit of Varangard that I think I'm going to try out in Nurgle as well as Slaves to Darkness. Definitely planning on getting more Varangard. I think they're really powerful in the meta right now. In general, like, I'm just struggling because, like, my Nurgle army is definitely really struggling with the current meta in general. I think they can be good, but I think you have to do things that are really risky and get lucky with them to do really well. Because when, like, I think the big thing is building lists that are dependent on Blades of Putrefaction and then getting Blades of Putrefaction off at the right times all the time, and that will take you to your 4-1, right? Like, that seems to be the way that it goes currently. So I think Nurgle really, really needs a new book. And Slaves to Darkness, I need to make more purchases to make that army more viable. Skaven right now, one of my other armies, is really struggling. And then my last army is Cities of Sigmar, but it's really like a free guild army, basically, which is basically suboptimal stuff to be playing Cities of Sigmar. So I'm kind of stuck in a place right now where I really don't have an army that's like good in the meta, right? Like, my Cities of Sigmar army is just like a legacy Empire army, basically, that has not been expanded into the other sub factions and cities of Sigmar. Um, Skaven are struggling a lot right now between rules changes and points changes. They keep getting punched with rules changes, and with points changes, and I don't know why there is so much hate coming towards Skaven from Games Workshop. I don't understand, but they're really struggling right now. Um, and their book is also fairly old as well. So they're really kind of struggling in that same space that Nurgle is, where their rules really don't work with this edition quite as well as other armies do. So then I've got my Slaves to Darkness, which I just haven't built up yet to be a competitive list, although it's a competitive army. And then my Nurgle, which is, I love them, but they are struggling so hard right now. I don't really know specifically what Nurgle needs. Looking at, the kind of treatment that we got for Slaves to Darkness and for Iron Jaws, I would hope that we would get things like Harbinger of Decay ability with the 5-up ward save just being on all the time and not requiring a command point. Same thing with like the Glotkin. I don't know what our like core command abilities and our allegiance ability would be. But it feels like a lot of the abilities we have need to be more like what Sloppity Bilepiper and Spoilpox Scrivener have, where you have either like modal abilities like they do, or stuff that's just always on, or you have just static abilities that you can hand out, or like an ability you can just target one unit with, like you can with like War Chanters. So I think that is one of the big things that Nurgle's missing and really needs. I think there need to be some points changes. I think a lot of stuff in the army is really overcosted, and it's an old book with old rules. It needs a lot of cleanup, a lot of changes. We have some really good abilities, like, because it's an old book. Like, we have a lot of things that are within rather than wholly within. But if you change like the range of an ability, like increase the range and make it wholly within, it'll function really similarly to the shorter range within, depending on what range differences that you have. I think it's there's so much that can be done with the army. It's hard to say like it needs X, it needs Y. Like they can go in whatever direction they want with it. And looking at what they've done with Orc War Clans and Stormcast Eternals, like they're clearly not afraid to make pretty big changes to how armies are functionally working and really like kick them up to a new level. And the army building for these new books definitely is different. Like the army construction is different. So I think, again, I think Nurgle, I have never been really somebody that was beating the like Nurgle needs a new book drum. But now that I ran up against like a fully charged new book Ironjawz army with like a list that I've used a lot in Nurgle that like is pretty well tuned for like my play style, uh now I'm like, no, we need a new book, like badly. So I'm really hoping the rumors are true, and that the next book coming up will be Nurgle. But judging by the way releases have been going, who knows when the hell we're going to be getting that. It could be currently sitting off the shore of Los Angeles in a container ship, waiting to come on shore. So who knows? That's all for now. Just kind of rambling thoughts of what's going on with the state of Nurgle in general right now, and my other armies, and just I don't know, kind of how I'm feeling about the game in general. A little bit discouraged, but as always, I'm just gonna try and do what's fun and enjoy my games as much as I can. So that's it for now. I'll talk to you all later.